within that 3 years. Assess if there are any special need of the new recruits that require to be met. Then we find out. After we find out something, then when we get new recruitment, if they are not satisfied with the salary or the services, then we have to fulfill, we have to answer some of those questions for the new recruits and determine the reasons for employees leaving the organization in the first 3 years. So this is the purpose of the study. And the research question, how can small and medium-sized firm increase organization commitment of their employees? So this is the question, our research question. How can small, medium-sized firm increase organization commitment of their employees? And the scope of the study, this study analyzes the problem of high turnover of employees within small to medium-sized firm. So this is scope. Then the relevance of the study, the cost of employee turnover to firm has been estimated up to 150% of the employee's remuneration package. So this is a study being made by Singer and Hesket. There are both direct and indirect costs involved. Direct costs related to living costs, replacement costs, transition costs, while the indirect costs related to the loss of production, reduced performance level, unnecessary overtime, and low morale of the staff. The result of this study will provide managers with the means to decrease the cost of employee turnover. So this is the main, the relevance of the study, the research. And then we go to research designs. First, we go for survey instrument. We have to interview a small number of employees who have joined the company in the previous 3 years. Based on this exploratory finding, we will administer a questionnaire to all the employees who have joined the company in the past 3 years. So find out information through the interview to a small group of people, those who are working first year, second year, and third year, and so on. And then we go to data collection. The interview will be conducted during the office hours in the conference hall of the organization at a pre-arranged time convenient to the interviewees. The questionnaire will be given to the employees to be completed by them in their homes and returned anonymously to the box set up to the purpose by the specific date. They will be reminded 2 days before the due date to return their questionnaires if not already done. Then we set a time frame. How long the research will take? So we set about 5 months. The organization will submit the full report to the management. So we may have to request budget because the budget and having our interviewers meeting and so the overtime budget for the staff and so on. And this is the one that they refer to the service company. So issues in preliminary stages of investigation. Is the project worth doing? If it is not worth doing, so it's a waste of money to conduct the research. Will there be an impact on the organization based on this research? The organization would like to know. If you are a researcher, they will find out. Will there be any impact? Provided our result will be reflected to the cost of the resignation. Does the researcher have the skills or resources to carry out the project? If you are the researcher, do you have enough knowledge and skill to carry out this project? What research design to select, how to design the questionnaire, how to write the report, and so on. Will the employees be informed on the project? We have to make the employees that we are carrying out this research so that we have the maximum cooperation from all the employees that is going to be covered in the interview, or those who are going to answer through questionnaire, they will return the questionnaire. Will you explain the purpose of the project to employees? Of course, you have to explain the purpose of the project. And the researcher must ensure that responses be kept confidential. Otherwise, if it is not confidential, they might not reveal all the information. And then, will the employees' participation be made compulsory? Will you make all the employees to participate? Compulsory or not? Can the employee decline to participate? Can the researcher be allowed to access sensitive information of the employees? Because the researcher can go through the files with the employees and so on, their records, their performance, about their family, and so on. Number 10, can the researcher ensure that respondents will be identified individually? For example, if they submitted their questionnaire, can we identify them by the name or so on? If you have to write your name on the questionnaire, that will not be confidential anymore. Will there be any negative effects by carrying out this research? Will it be a negative effect to the organization? Where ethical dilemmas have arisen, will you resolve it? So you have to look in all these ethical issues. Some issues may be Western ethic, in line with Western ethic. They reject that confidentiality, cheating, all this kind of thing, and in line with the Islamic ethic as well. So you have to weigh both, but to make sure Islamic ethic is, if you are doing as a Islamic research methodology, Islamic ethic is a must for you to adhere. So I give you one example. This is a researcher carried out a research on sex and happiness. They examined the relationship between sexual activities and happiness using sample 3,800 adults from China. We established some firm results about the contribution of sexual activities and relationship to happiness for important countries other than the United States. So this kind of research, if you are asked to carry out among the Muslim societies in Malaysia or in Malay societies, they may not be able to carry it out because the Muslim society are very secretive talking about sexual behavior. But for the West, the Chinese, the American, they are free. I used to get involved in this kind of research in the US in the early 80s. My professor requested me to participate in this, and this is one of the projects from our research paper. And this is actual research being carried out by my professor in the Department of English. So even we have to ask some very personal questions to the respondents. So this is quite an article for the Muslim or Malay society, or even in the African society. So this is a kind of research that involve personal ethics, And then was involved in another survey which called to study the relationship between Islamicity and saving. So the topic looks very simple: Islamicity and saving. So when you do the actual research, the most difficult part is how you measure Islamicity. And people are very, the pious people will not tell them what they are doing. They will not tell you that how many juzuz of Quran that they read every day, how many times they wake up for tahajjud, at what time, and how much they contributed for the sedekah, all this kind of thing, that measure the Islamicity of a person. So to measure Islamicity is difficult, very, very subjective. So my student who's involved in this research, they are trying to use the model, the Christian model. In Christian model, it's different. People are very frank. Oh yes, I donated a lot of money to the church, for example. I went to the church. I never miss going to the church. So that measure how relationship, and then we can check their attendance in the church and so on. But for the Muslim who goes for Friday prayer, Jemaah prayer, will not be recorded, only between them and Allah. So the level of Islamicity here is difficult to measure. And then saving also, some people are very secretive. They will not tell you how much they have the money in the bank. So this is the issue. So for the primary research is quite difficult. Although we can have a rough estimate, but it will not reflect that very much. And then another topic, maybe can think of the impact of zakat collection on economic development. So zakat collection does not reflect actually on economic development in many countries. The reason is that not much zakat being collected. In Malaysia, Alhamdulillah, the collection of zakat is reaching billions. You take for the whole country, billions of ringgit. But in other countries, and the other thing is that zakat is not centralized. Some people pay zakat on their own without going through the Majlis Agama Islam. So there is no proper record for some countries on zakat collection. And if you have big amount of zakat collected, but the population is very big, the contribution to economic development is very small. So all the time, the answer will be insignificant. Zakat contribution to the economic development is insignificant. This reflects that zakat doesn't play a significant role in economic development or negative relationship. So you have to be very careful in selecting the topic. You have to make sure that the topic is doable, measurable. So this is the problem that being faced by many of researchers who are very ambitious. They are very Islamic. They thought that people can everybody can be like them to respond everything. No, it's not that as easy as that. These are some of the topics that I give you that may involve Islamic thing and involve some ethical thing. In Malaysia, in the Malay society, quite unethical to ask people about the sexual activities and so on. So those are some of the things that I could share. Maybe we can entertain one or two questions before we move to the research design. And can we open up Brother Sharan to some questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dato, we have Brother Afrad. Go ahead, Brother Afrad.
Ya, nah. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah. Inshallah, I would like to do research in the concept of riba nasi'ah, Prof. Riba nasi'ah. One of my draft theme is preliminary survey on the concept of riba nasi'ah in Indonesia. I will use, inshallah, the methodology of literature review, comparing several opinions from prominent scholars in Indonesia, and compare them with prominent scholars in the international level. For an example, I will try to compare in Dr. Safi Antonio book, which is very famous in Indonesia, and I will try to compare it with the book of Understanding Islamic Finance by Professor Muhammad Ayub. But I will use several prominent scholars in Indonesia and in international level. Could you please share? Is there any possibility of weakness and so on? Yeah, please. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, what do you really want to find out? Because basically,
what I want to
based literature review, based on their research, based on their findings already, and the opinion of the authors. So, as a researcher, is there anything new that you want to discover?
Yeah. If I try to read one of the two books between Dr. Safi book and Muhammad Ayub book, Dr. Safi book will mention mostly like some lecture in IUM that riba nasi'ah is, for example, exchanging money with a different value and at a different point of time. But on the other hand, Muhammad Ayub books, Understanding in Islamic Finance, is more broader than exchanging money with money. There are other things that can be included in riba nasi'ah, such as exchanging money with gold, with different point of time. If one of the ribawi commodity is delayed. So what I want to try is we need a more comprehensive concept of riba nasi'ah in Islamic bank, because unfortunately in Indonesia our DSN MUI has passed a fatwa regarding murabahah on gold, which is gold is allowed to be buy but through a different payment of money. I think there is a different concept regarding the understanding of riba nasi'ah. So I want to elaborate more. Is there any differences of understanding or not? That is my point of, that is one of my purpose actually, Prof.
Those are only the book review, the opinion of the scholars. So you will summarize, or you will come up with a conclusion based on the opinion of the scholars. Maybe you have to take scholars of various muzahab. So then only you can make a more comprehensive conclusion. Not just by selecting the authors, the scholars, the people who come from different mazhab and so on.
Okay. Now,
I think that's my feeling, on that.
Different mazhab, yeah. Now, jazakallah khairan, Prof. Jamil, Osman.
Any other question before Haji Shayaa will start with the lecture?
We have Brother Imam Saeed, Kana.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prof, how are you, sir?
Okay, Imam.
MashaAllah. My name is Saeed. I'm actually from Accra, Ghana.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Alhamdulillah. Prof, my question is, I'm making a research with regards teaching of Arabic language in a setting in Ghana. So actually the title is Teaching the Language of Al-Quran and the Dilemma of Using Non-Written Language as a Medium of Instruction in Ghana. So for instance, we teach the language with our local Hausa language. So we teach Arabic in Hausa. So the lecturer or the teacher teaches the language in Hausa, and that Hausa language is not written. So we end up having that gap. So I'm just trying to look at how that affect the choice of, you know, people going into learning that language, because a student comes into the class and the teacher teaches him Arabic, but using a different language, and that language is not written. And that is why where my emphasis is, that language is not written. That Hausa language is not written. So more or less, he memorized.
What do you mean not written?
Not written meaning the Hausa language, like it's oral. So he speaks in Hausa, and the lecturer doesn't write that language.
Spoken language, is that?
Yeah, it's a spoken language. Yeah, it's only a spoken language. And so I'm looking at finding a solution of bridging that particular gap and closing it up. And of course, my all the points that Prof has written with regards to the methodology now, I just want to ask, what are the ethical things we are looking at there when it comes to the methodology I'm going to undertake to get my data or collect my data through interviewing some of our scholars who have gone through the learning of Arabic in other countries, like in Arab countries, and then where the language is Arabic and what is they are being taught is Arabic, and they can write the Arabic. And also comparing it to another country like Nigeria, where the Hausa language is actually written. So the person can write whatever the teacher is saying, or the lecturer is saying, by using what they call the Ajami. They use the Arabic letters to write the Hausa language. So whatever the lecturer is saying can be written as a reference or something. Unlike in Ghana, where we do not write the Hausa language. So I'm just looking at what are the ethical things we are looking at here when it comes to my interview, when it comes to my interrogation of my candidates, those who I'm going to interview for this particular project.
It's too early to look at the ethical aspect, you know. But obviously, as you said, you know, in Ghana, you don't use Arabic transcript like in Urdu and other languages. Urdu also they have similar to Arabic. When in Malay language, we used to have the Arabic transcript over here, but the Arab cannot read our Malay in Arabic transcript. The meaning is totally different. The pronunciation totally different. But for the Malays, we are lucky that we have many Arabic words which are similar. Although the pronunciation might not be the same, but quite similar, you know. So, but still, the Malays could not speak Arabic unless they go to proper Arabic learning, you know. So you are trying to see the effectiveness of the learning Arabic, you know. Maybe to use a certain methodology through the survey. Is that right? So through the survey, and you got to be very clear with what you want to find out. You know. So that's my feeling. Okay.
So we take one last question from Botswana, Brother Edwin Salim. Edwin, are you there?
Naam.
Go ahead. Yeah. Introduce yourself. This is the first time we listen from you.
Yes, okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Prof. The name is Edwin Salim Saidu.
Yeah.
Yes, from Botswana.
From what?
Yes. Botswana is in.
Are you teaching
South
or
Africa? I'm currently an MA student.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And the question follows with regards to my research. I'm doing a sort of comparative study between Islam and Tswana culture, and with a case study on marriage. So I'm on the data collection stage now, and I've been conducting interviews. So when formulating my problem statement, I didn't think about this, but it's now appearing to me because I'm at the stage now of data collection, where now I have to go interview Muslims with regards to issues of marriage. Now the challenge that I'm foreseeing is with regards to the different madahib and the different different understanding of marriage in the different madahibs and the different rulings in the different madahibs. So I'm wondering now how I'm going to deal with the issue of the data I'm going to collect from the different people that I'm going to interview, because of course I haven't chosen a certain madhab to interview. So I might find somebody that I'm interviewing is a Shafi. He will give me the perspective from the Shafi, rulings or understanding Shafi fiqh. I might interview somebody who is a Hanafi. I might interview somebody who is a Hanbali, etc. Which are going to give me different, perspectives. And now it's a question that just came to me yesterday actually. That how am I going to then deal with these different rulings? Because in my problem statement, I just said Islam. I didn't pick it's a comparative stuff. The title of my thesis is actually the interconnection of Islam and Jana culture, a case study of marriage, and the chapter about Islamic marriage is just general, general Islamic marriage. I didn't focus it on a certain madhab. So I'm wondering now, how would you advise me to maybe tackle this, this problem that I foresee?
Okay, what kind of mazhab are they following in Ghana?
Well, in Botswana, we have different madhab. We have people who are Shafi, we have people who are Maliki, we have people who are Hanafi. Most of the people in Botswana are Hanafi.
Big
So in
number.
my research, I have to interview 3 sets of.
Each mazhab have big number.
The big number is Hanafi.
Sorry?
Hanafi. Okay, I would say Hanafi and Shafi are equal most.
There may be only 2 major mazhabs. So
The
maybe you consider only 2 major mazhab. That would be sufficient. To compare whether the culture or the local culture in line with Islamic values or not. So,
Okay.
so that is one area that you can focus on. So maybe 90% are not in line with Islamic values in either mazhab, Then you can see that you can make conclusion that the marriage culture in Ghana is not following Islamic way,
Interestingly, it is actually very close, and that's why I chose to do this subject. But then I'm wondering if I need to change my problem statement. That's exactly the question that I'm wondering now.
Yeah, I think you got to go to proper problem statement, and then to research question also.
Okay.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, thank you very much for the all the best for your thesis.
Okay, we go to Haji Shayaa or
we give to Haji Shayaa now.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this is our third discussion regarding this research methodology from the Islamic perspective. I'd like to share the slide. Here's my slide. Okay. Everybody can see the slide? Everybody can see the slide? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, everybody can hear. Okay.
But the voice is not very clear. Maybe your mic.
Oh, the mic. Okay. Now, is it clear now? Is it clear?
Yeah, clear. Very clear.
Better now.
Okay, close. Okay. So let us refresh what we have discussed last week regarding the formulation of research proposal. I think Professor Jamil has just now brief example and so on and also the problem facing the participant in terms of determining the problem statements. As we know that from the early discussion, a researcher should know first the concept of, the overview of Islam. This overview of Islam should be in their mind, in the sense that because this overview of Sharia is to be integrated with a research methodology, for example, research process. And from here, you're able to determine what sort of research you're going to do. Either it is I would call it qualitative research, whether it is a quantitative research, and also you should be able to understand whether this research is analytical or quantifiable in the sense that it is to do with your choice of research methodology. Having this in mind, then you can have a very good proposal relating to your area of interest. We have discussed that earlier, that before we formulate a research proposal, we should determine the problem. What are the problem areas? And the problem areas, from the problem areas, you're going to capitalize these problem areas into problem statement. And from problem statement, you're able to determine the definition, what we call it, the question problem, in the sense that later on you're able to find further into research questions. And all these research problem, in your process of identification, you should do reading a lot of research review, books in journal, and also to discuss with prominent scholars and your friends around or your supervisors, perhaps proposal without going to the problem. So here you will find difficulty, the loss in this process of doing research. So this stage is very important. Look at your problem and define the problem and capitalize the problems, a lot of problems, into one statement, problem statement. That you're able to direct your research. And also, you can see that you must be able to identify, we have discussed it earlier, last week, that you should not get involved in the symptom, because you are involved in the symptom of the problem, you're not able to answer the real problem. For example, COVID-19, the symptom is headache, coughing, what I call that, fever, and so on. This is not the problem. The problem is what I call the virus itself, how we could determine to control the virus, how we should overcome the virus by introducing research on vaccine and so on. So this is just discussed last week. Anyway, we're not going to discuss this week. This is refreshing the idea of this last week discussion. So today we are talking about research design. After we identify our problem, we have capitalized our problem statement, and we have find our research questions. Second stage, that is called research design. You can look from this research design. Okay, the research design consisting of design research. Your design strategy. You should have a strategy to have to proceed on your design research. Having this proper strategy will not get lost during your process of doing research. And of course, after you define your strategy, then your data collection design, and then sampling design. After that, you pilot testing your list collection design, sampling design, and further you're able to refine your research instrument. And that you can proceed on the research later on. So today we're going to discuss only this aspect of research design strategy. And I think Professor Jamil have discussed this issue in an example, and also in terms of collection design and sampling design. He has touches on some of the areas as an example. But I'm just going to talk about the structure, how we should proceed our research. So research design is very important. Bear in mind that our research is basically from Islamic perspective, meant to say from the Sharia angle to fulfill Sharia obligation or Sharia objective. If you look at this, for example, design strategy, we should have an overriding strategy. That is, overriding strategy is to fulfilling the maqasid al-Sharia. As we have mentioned earlier, the maqasid al-Sharia is the ultimate objective of Islam. It's a five set objectives. Set objective to say the protection of Islam, protection of life, protections of intellect, protections of offspring, some of your tactical strategy, so that we're able to achieve or parts of it of this operating strategy. Excuse me. So after that operating strategy, you can even mention in your research of research you want to use. You have to determine it first, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. If I could recommend here, if you're doing alone, you should look at yourself. How, in what area that you're expertise, in what area you are more, more expert or more knowledgeable. Before we go toward that type of research, you choose, you're not too analytical, it's better to choose what we call this qualitative strategy, or whether in terms of purpose, what is your purpose, you should define properly, and you have time dimension as what Professor Jamil mentioned earlier. You should have your time frame. You cannot do research continuously. You should have proper time frame, time dimension, and the scope of research. You should too wide. For example, one participant mentioned he wanted to do research on various areas, for example, Nigeria, Malaysia, and so on. I see that some students want to do it, but it is too big a scope that you end up cannot get the data. It's important that the scope within your range, your network, and you have the information from your network. So your scope of research should properly define. This is one strategy. And the other one is the environment. You must have looked at environment. Environment relating to what they call this, for example, whether your research has to field research, whether it's going to be interview, whether it's going to be holography research, based on book and journal, or you should base on laboratory research. For example, basic medical research, clinical research is laboratory research. Whether it is based on the casual research, interaction, and so on. These are basic information or strategy you need to know. Okay, I will discuss on this design strategy. Okay, what I have mentioned earlier. For example, here, design strategy. You must be able to choose the type of this research, whether it is qualitative, whether it is quantitative, whether it's a mix of the two. You see, if you are doing alone, I think, without much assistance from those who are around you, then you should be based. I recommend you should base on your expertise. You see, if you are a statistical with good what they call statistical background, perhaps you can do both. But you don't have, but you can get somebody to assist you. But you don't have somebody to assist you, but I prefer you to do this qualitative. You know, you will find difficult analyzing this data statistically, even though there are so many SPS software to analyze you, but it's very difficult to understand. So, but if you are in a team where Dr. Jamil has mentioned earlier, in a company where you're being assisted by specialists, statistician, and also some data collectors, but therefore you'll be able to have this make research or qualitative research. The best is to have a quality, what do you call that, combine of the two, because you can get the ideas from the books, you can make analysis from here, and you can have further analysis based on here. So you can have a combined. I will discuss later next week how these two combine and give you a better result. So these are the strategy of type of research that you should choose before you're going to undertake your to proceed on. And your purpose of study is important. What is your purpose actually? For example, your purpose is too wide. For example, you mentioned the zakat contribution. It is too wide. What area that you should do research? What contribution is due? Is it contribution relating one of the asnaf helping the poor? Or is it contribution relating to the fisabilillah? Or whether it related to, this is the areas of descriptive study you have to do, the purpose you have to do, and how it goes. The purpose determine who, what, where, when, or how many. That means it's more quantifiable that could be measured. And casual study, of course, it is one variable to affect the variable. You have some other data, for example, some researcher on data on this receiver of the zakat, for example, whether there is a relationship between the economic impact to their daily life. That is another research to do. When I did one research, casual research, between the demand for fish and the demand for meat, whether there is an elasticity demand for both them. For example, if there is a fish, a supply of fish, is there any elastic demand for meat? Likewise, there's a causal relationship between fish, demand for fish, and the demand for meat demand. This is causal relationship. You see, this is sort of study. It can be carried out. Discussed it. I'll just give you some introduction. Okay, time dimension is very important. Cross-sectional study, whether it is carried out, one represents snapshot at one time, or it is continuous study registered over extended period. This is also very important because if your study dimension is too long, then it is very difficult for you to end up your research. In industry, they have this panel, longitudinal studies, in the sense that to make sure that there's any change of taste. But today, with advent of multimedia technology, information, they can get across information from the what they call the perception they can receive from the response from the multimedia in terms of changing of perception, changing of market attitudinal towards the demand. So that's why you can see in multimedia, because in business they should be very quick in making decision. As you know before, what they call some car distributor, car manufacturer, they maintain 5 to 20 years to change the model. But today, not even expensive car has changed within 5 years. Mean to say there's a long life brand survival. They have done studies so that they study on based on the perception from the multimedia, from the reception, and not waiting too long. So here again, technology had changed the way we do research. I did mention earlier, we have now have this multimedia, we have now information, e-book, e-library, everything. We could do research very fast. Before we did research 3 years, we have to do typing one by one. I remember in 1970, I think Dr. Jamil also remember, we used automatic typewriter one by one. If supervisor make a correction, we have to retype the whole thesis. You see, imagine it take 3 years or 4 years, but now today we have the technology. You can do even correction within few minutes or 1 hour. So in top industry, they have changed research. They don't take too long, possibly 3 weeks, 3 months, 1 month. But in academic world, they're still waiting for 3 years to do PhD, masters. I don't know. I wonder why. When I was student, when I have a master student, I just say do your research within 6 months or 3 months. The most important thing, you are clear with your research. The finding is important. So we have to change in a way as what the industry has changed. But I'm not criticizing the academic world, but I'm talking about the advantage that we should be doing in terms of developing research and integration with the universities, industries. Okay. Point adequate, the scope of the study should be well defined. For example, the depth of the study. If you're going to deep the study, you will not be able to make analysis. You should define the depth of study, the, how breadth it is, how wide it is, and as I mentioned earlier, and so on. So these are the strategy that we're able to identify earlier. It's worth looking in all this technical strategy so that it will help you to proceed your research more faster, more systematic without much problem. And you can identify research environment. You should do, for example, is it a field condition? We have to do some research based on field research. For example, we are going to do socio-economic research. You have to interview to the field. If you want to do some agricultural research, you have to do some biological check in the field work. For example, we did this on the way of solid management. From my own experience, we have to do some field work to identify how municipal solid waste is being generated and what is the composition. We have to look at the rubbish, we sort it out, and so on. We'll discuss the real thing in next what? Next lectures. And laboratory conditions, we have to identify if we are a researcher in medical clinical, we have to do some bioassay, we have to do biological biometric study. We should have identified. We only depend on laboratory condition, you see, not based on other areas. So we're confined to our laboratory research. And perhaps after clinical research, laboratory research, we can go towards a second state where, for example, the what you call that coronavirus to determine the risk vaccine. They go to laboratory, certain period, they have the dimension of time, then they have to go to testing of real research, the effect of vaccine into other form of sicknesses, for example, environment study. Because it interrelated. The tactical research is tactical design is interrelated. Type, purpose, as you see here, yeah. Compare tactical strategies, type, choose, purpose, time dimension, the scope, environment. This is a tactical strategy you should properly define before you proceed. Therefore, you'll not be able to find a problem. So just to give an idea about the qualitative and quantitative research, if you are expert in certain area, for example, the common purpose here you can see, to discover ideas, a general research object. You just want to do the ideas, whether the ideas of, say, Maqasid or Sharia is acceptable in industry. I did my own research on that based on content analysis, based on written journal by scholars, written books by scholars, by Muslim scholars, and I also make this content analysis based on a book written by professional managers. So with this content analysis, I don't do survey. I just make a content analysis, analyze the perception from last book written in a year or two, whether there's a change between the two. So I will discuss the result of my example of this research, that the outcome of the research based on this. And based on this, we can see that quantitative research, my example is quantitative and quality is integrated. So based on the perception I receive from here, that there is a certain shift of ideas, professional managers in industry toward Maqasid al-Sharia, then I go on to testing my test hypothesis based on the model which can integrate the strategic management with Maqasid. So this is the two I can combine. But if you are not specialized on this, perhaps you can just concentrate here. Be able to produce outcome of research will help other researchers. Okay, if you are so good in statistical analysis, perhaps you could combine the two. And the approach here is different. Just interpret the objective, making an inference, and then measure the test. It's here different. Okay, constructed free form data is here unstructured form. Unstructured form, for example, when we do this content analysis, we don't question them. We study from the book written, the journal written by the authors, so that we're able to capitalize or analyze the content in their mind, whether there's a change or the shift between the two. It's a very interesting content analysis. For example, today we are asking opinion survey, meeting them. Now this just right. For example, one brother is talking about the conception of certain thing. Yeah, for example, is the comparison and so on, comparison study and so on. We can look from the content analysis, journal written, books written by them. Okay. Another one is research approach. But in terms of data collection, you can see from what I call this from qualitative is more structured to get more figures. And the other one is here research independent. Your researcher independent means to say, if you are qualitative, you are intimately involved. Here you are, put a question to them. Anybody can ask the question to get the data. But here you should intimately independent. For example, when I did this qualitative research on the Maqasid al-Sharia, I sit down, discussion over lunch, over dinner with them. What is the idea? Just to get the idea, I record to the tape. And then after going back, I capitalize their mind with certain code which I have introduced, the content analysis. See, I have to be intimately involved in that sort of form. And very subjective in that case. But it is, content analysis is acceptable in scientific way nowadays. It is what you call, maybe the trend is toward this mind, opinion, and so on. Okay. Sample taken is very small sample in natural setting. Natural setting mean you talk informally through discussion, through meeting. When you do research, you can see their mind, you can record what they're saying without their knowledge, in the sense that you can see the perception. Okay, large sample produced here is more or result applied other situation. These are the basic quality research. Yeah, I have given this overview of thing just to give a summary on the technical strategy that you have the type of research. You should be able to identify quantity, qualitative, mix, and so on, and you should determine your technical strategy to include the purpose, time, dimension, scope, and environment. Okay. And these are the examples for some of the research technique in bibliography, sampling design, you see, and the analysis, the two common analysis which have been using in the sense that thematic analysis, content analysis, because the purpose of the qualitative research is to study the pattern. For example, here, you see, discover ideas with general research object. You see, for example, the ideas of their Maqasid al-Sharia as part of their strategy, understanding in management. Okay, here you can see, and also you can see in terms of sampling design and quantitative analysis, more rigorous in the sense that very what I call it, quantitative in the sense that it involves scientific finding. There are two types. In the say this is called non-probability sampling. Yeah, non-probability sampling commonly used in business, determine market research, market price. But unfortunately, it is being not to say abused, but it is being going to what people's opinions into other areas, which is not right. For example, I give example, real example. There's a research being carried out to get the opinion of people regarding corruption in the government or in the institution. There is said that the outcome of the research, number one, is police is more corrupted, 57% corrupted. They say the outcome, and the rest and the rest. This is an opinion, misleading opinion. It is opinion of the public. It could be an image rectification, right? But it is not real case. But people abuse that. Yeah, 57 of police are all corrupted. Just imagine how they can abuse the data. So actually, you have to study the actual corruption police. You have to go into the court case. How many cases the police is being caught or being convicted of being what they call this corruption. So I can see that the non-probability sampling here has been basically going to other areas. But in business, it's basically to study the trend, the perception of product marketing, so they can change quickly the products and so on, and the prices and so on. And second, sampling qualitative research. From here, you can see it is probability sampling. This is probability sampling, is very scientific sampling. It's highly probable. We can say in Islamic, I mean, sure is only Allah, but others is probability. 95% sure, 99% sure. They are measured to us. Use the probabilities of highly probable, not highly 100%. So make sure that when the outcome of a research is always determined if the result is highly probable based on 95% confidence limit, 99% confidence, not 100%. So these are probability sampling, not as probability scientific sampling. Simple random, you should randomly selected for scientific, everybody having chance to be chosen, and then they are being to make sure it is valid, reliable, as well, and also practical. What Dr. Jamil has mentioned earlier, it should is divided into systematic clusters and stratified to make it more confined and more precise and more reliable and more practical in terms of economic to carry out the sampling. Yes, just another few minutes, I think, just 3 minutes to cover. Yeah, this is the example, for example, last week, example of the, I mentioned just now, formulation of research proposal, yeah. You determine the qualitative and quantitative together. You can see the qualitative perception content based on textbook, journal, textbook, proposal, interview here. And this based on quantitative statistical analysis, scientific sampling, and so on and so on. So the two finding is combined together to come out with outcome of research finding. For example, I did mention earlier, market survey, see, to determine market survey in terms of non-probability sampling. There are various type of markets methods, which are non-scientific, based on judgment, based on quota, and so on. But here are more scientific in the case field survey, which is unique because this study is to find out whether it is feasible financially, whether it is feasible to have a factory based on this composition. So this field survey is very important. Determine the structure of the business, and this is to make sure it's viable, the price and so on. So here is a give example and so on. So here I end up with the twin in the case that we have discussed on the design strategy and so on. Perhaps in the next discussion, we're able to do more detail on data collection, sampling design, and here we try to give practical example for you on my own experiences so that you're able to share, you're able to what do you call that, to find out how it can be done, whether it is difficult after we determine the understanding of what do you call that, design of research design. We have identified our overriding strategy. We have a tactical strategy in a process so we can proceed our research in more easier way. Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps we see next week we talk of data collection. As Dato, Professor Dr. Jamil mentioned, the questionnaire, the involved the method collection here, the questionnaire, sampling here, the sampling, how we sample the data and so on. Okay, thank you very much, brother and sister. I hope it's useful to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tuan Haji. We have this question from Ryan Tori. I have a draft of research proposal aimed to discuss about racism in Islamic world, Middle East. Is it feasible enough to elaborate?
Well, do you have it? Since the time is short, we cannot elaborate here. Is it possible that you just send it to my what do you call that? To my what do you call the email? Then we can discuss next week for the benefit of others as well.
Okay. Brother, you can forward to me the proposal. I don't know for another one from Ahmad Sudiro. This is a big question. Positivism brought the empirical quantitative research from natural sciences to sociology. Do we still can use it in sociological field due to the difference of worldview between Islamic and positivism worldview?
What is that? The difference between?
You can go to 556 in the chat room.
556. What get?
Can you get it? Oh, we'll forward it to you. I think this is very philosophical.
Okay, but we give to me, then what is the ultimate comparison? But anything to make comparison in terms of research, what I could see that any research is to find the problem, isn't it? To solve the problem. And there are methods to solve the problem, it's a methodology. If we cannot get the data, we cannot get from interview, perhaps we could make content analysis from the journal written, from the conferences papers written, from the journal. From there, we can understand the perception from one view to another view. That is important. You see, if we cannot get the data, perhaps that research could be done by qualitative research. I should recommend content analysis to be better, because content analysis will be able for you to go a little bit forward towards data analysis. I mean to say you could develop that mind or the data from the books and the data from the journal that is very subjective more toward objective. You can construct a frequency table, you can construct matrices, and from there you're able to make some analysis. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Maybe Dato or Shayaa, a final word for today.
Inshallah, we'll meet you again next week. As Brother Shayaa was saying, maybe we can cover a little bit more detail on research design, maybe on the questionnaire design, on doing the personal interview and other things, inshallah.
Yes. Yes, but thank you very much. I think if it will be very useful, if some participant to send their example, yeah, and the real example which they experience, then we can go together with Dato and myself to see how this methodology could be applied, because we have reached to the certain stage of putting into real. So this is good in the sense that we're able to practice it, or we can refine our way of doing research. So maybe participant could submit some of their proposal of their intent research to Badr Shahran, and then we can share together with Dato and myself. Okay, thank you very much. See you next week.
I think it's a very good idea for our friends, brothers, sisters. Please forward to me, WhatsApp or email, your research proposal. Then I'll forward it to Prof and Shayaa, and then we can discuss it next week. Dato, we have time to promote for tonight's lecture. Brother Sanu Kutub, 1 2 minutes.
Tonight's lecture at 9 o'clock Malaysian time, there will be a talk by Professor Dato Sanu Kutub from Rini. He is a scholar, and he will be talking about ijtihad and fatwa in line with coronavirus, COVID-19. So this is a very good topic. So inshallah, I hope all of you can attend this talk at 9 o'clock, inshallah. Now it's 6 o'clock, another 3 hours.
Okay, everyone. We'll see tonight with Prof. Sanu, our close friend also. He was in Malaysia as deputy rector before. He went back to Guinea. Okay, Dato. Okay, Shayaa. Thank you so much. We'll see you again tonight.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.